I've been in China for half my life and I'm turning 40 next month, so simply by virtue of my age and seeing so many young people, I hope to have a nugget or two of knowledge for you. Tonight I want to speak about some of the long-term issues and challenges that come up when you commit to a long-term life as China, as a non-Chinese. For the Chinese in the audience, you could simply think of some of the things I say as if you went abroad or if you're living in a different city. So it's things that come up when you're not living where you're from. Next, please. So I first came to China as a student and then came back after university, and I found a real niche helping luxury and fashion brands open stores around China. This is the real core of my 30s. I got into a real good swing. I was an influencer in the industry. I got to meet famous celebrities, opened big stores for fancy brands, and go to lots and lots of parties. Life was humming along really nicely. Next, please. The first major thing that came up in my life was getting married. Now, this is my wife in Knock. I've put her QR code here because she's also a mentor for Chinaccelerator. She spoke last batch and also does a lot of work on adult development. So we met outside of China, but we came to Beijing together, and after we came here, she went through a period of severe mental illness. And we come from such different backgrounds that for us, exploring the issue of marriage was very challenging because we knew there was a risk that it wouldn't work. And just like as an entrepreneur finding a founder, you know, getting into starting a company with someone's very serious business, and there's a lot that could come out of such a deep and relationship where you spend so much time together. So we actually did some marriage counselling, and I'd almost recommend that founders do pre-startup counselling together, because the counsellor helped us bring out issues that we hadn't thought of and that could be deal breakers down the line. And these include things like what lifestyle we envisaged, where did we want to live and die. You know, I've been in China a long time, I plan to stay a long time, but I don't see myself dying here. Ethics, behaviour, these things we've clashed on a lot and really had some issues around. And then, especially Western and Chinese culture, as they age, often in Chinese or Asian culture, the parents-in-law move in with you. Well, I wasn't having any of that, so we had to really work through that as an issue. And I love this quote by Jeff Bezos on what he wanted in a wife, or what maybe you'd imagine in a co-founder. It's someone who'd get you out of a third country prison. Not necessarily about looks, not necessarily whether they can cook a steak well. It's, you know, something serious like getting you out of trouble when shit hits the fan. Next slide, please. The next issue for me was having kids. Now, this is also something you should talk about with a co-founder or potential mate. Even tonight there may be some hookups, so although some of you are very young and this could be a while off, you can put your kids in international school or in the local school, but that affects the philosophy of them, how they're educated, how they're raised. So that's a very important issue. Again, talk about through these things with a potential partner. I think it's the message I'm trying to get across here is the more you talk about this up front, the better you'll have later on. You won't have false expectations, you won't have assumptions that may be misleading. It's just thinking, we'll figure it out later. It doesn't always work, and I've got lots of friends who've been divorced and lots of issues to prove that. Pollution's definitely getting bigger in China, but when things like the environment and where I wanted to raise my kids became a major issue for me and almost led for me to leave Beijing. And this is the big one, and I've put it in red because once you're in a serious relationship, and then once you have kids, you have to start dividing the resources of yourself as a team. It's something you'll have to do in a startup as well. Who becomes the CEO? Who gets to do the media attention? Or in parents' case, who's staying home to take care of the kids? Who's going out to work? And if one person's doing really well in the career, the other person's changing nappies all day, resentment starts to build in, and I've felt that, and so has my wife. For the mother, she has to go through 9 months of pregnancy. So that's a big halt, usually, to the careers of the women. Next page. So my major challenge in the 20 years I've been engaged with China is after having kids, and I started to feel an identity change, going from being the fashion guy to the parent or the stay-at-home dad. And it's not that you can't be both, but becoming a father started getting me to question my values a lot. Next slide. So I started questioning my values about how I wanted to spend my time. And this is something I'd encourage you to think about as well, especially when you embark on a startup, which is going to be very, very demanding. Especially if you have a co-founder, you need to be on the same page of what investment in time and financial resources and emotional resources you expect from each other. I started to question what career meant to me, what was health. I was traveling a lot, second-tier cities, on planes a lot, eating Kentucky Fried because that's all there is in a lot of Chinese airports. Health wasn't going well. What does friendship mean long-term in China? Because a lot of your friends leave. When you have kids, you start hanging out with other families and your friendship dynamics change. So all these things come up long-term. Next. And then I was also addressing all of these issues in the context of being in China. And so what is health or wealth or long-term prosperity to Chinese people? Because that was different to how I saw things and I was having a lot of conflict around that. Next slide. And so all these things I was really uncontent or discontent with my situation. So I thought, look, it's China making me feel like this, it's time to leave. We've got to get out of here. At the time, it was a few years back and the pollution was very bad and a lot of people were starting to leave. So me and my wife, we did a bit of a matrix and, you know, Beijing, Hong Kong, Sydney, what are the cities we'd consider living in? What's the housing, what's the education, what's the startup environment, what's the entrepreneurial environment like in these cities? And by going through this, actually it turned out that Beijing still, and China was ahead for one thing, and that was opportunity and career. And we decided to stay in Beijing and knuckle down, and also through going through this process I realized that it wasn't China, it wasn't Beijing making me feel bad. It was a stage of development I was going through as an adult. And so again, if you're committing to building a company in China, you're going to be here for a while. And there's going to be ups and downs, and sometimes you may question, if you're non-Chinese, you may question yourself, you know, is China where I want to be? And this process helped me. Next slide, please. So there's a study, and I did a lot of research and self-development. There's a study called The Seasons of a Man's Life, and they've done one, The Seasons of a Woman's Life, about the different transitions that adults go through in life. And I encourage you to look this up or ask me about it. And I realized I was stuck in a midlife transition, figuring out not just where I came from and who I am, next slide, but what I wanted to be next. And what I envy about a lot of you young people is, you know, when I was your age, there was no startup scene. There was less opportunity. So I really envy that you, from tonight on, you can choose who you want to be from now. Next slide. So really what to do about this, I'm getting low on time, so I think self-awareness, knowing yourself is the answer to a lot of this stuff. I like the Toyota 5 Whys question, which is trying to get to the bottom of things. You want to do a startup, why? You want to be rich, why? You want a Ferrari, why? Because you want to pick up chicks or you like going fast. So use that to get to the bottom of things in your behaviour. Next. So I've now got a new emerging identity. As anyone who doesn't know what they should do these days, you should just become a key opinion leader. And it turns out that my fashion background and my fathering style is quite well received by people. Next slide. So these are my current daddy media channels. If anyone's interested in following, a lot of them are new, there's not a lot of content.